The divorce hearing was scheduled for noon. At 9:17 that morning, Maren Carter sat alone, in a fertility clinic waiting room, while couples walked past, carrying ultrasound photographs, and laughing about baby names. She had been in this building more times than she could count. Not for that. For something harder. The doctor entered carrying a thick file, and an expression Maren had learned to read before anyone spoke. "Mrs. Carter." "You don't have to soften it," Maren said. "I've heard every version." The doctor looked at her directly. "Not this one." She turned the monitor. A tiny image appeared against the black screen, almost impossible to see. Then a heartbeat. Small, steady, unmistakable. "Our previous diagnosis was wrong." Maren stared at the screen. "You're approximately 8 weeks pregnant." The room became completely silent. Maren did not cry immediately. She simply looked at the heartbeat on the screen and felt 6 years of grief rearrange themselves into something she did not yet have a word for. The doctor placed the ultrasound photograph in her hands. "Congratulations, you are going to be a mother," Maren laughed. A broken sound. Then she pressed the photograph against her chest. Then her phone lit up with 43 unread messages. The first was from Ryan. "Don't embarrass yourself by coming to the company today." She kept reading. "Everyone already knows. She's pregnant. Sign the divorce papers quietly." Then a video. Someone had recorded the company's anniversary gala less than an hour earlier. Ryan stood beneath crystal lights with a glass of champagne, and his arm around a younger woman whose pregnancy was impossible to hide. Employees applauded. Business partners smiled. Then Ryan lifted the microphone. "I've spent 6 years hoping my wife would give me a family, but sometimes life rewards the people willing to move on." He kissed the woman's forehead. "My mistake was wasting 6 years waiting for a woman with an empty womb." Thunderous applause. Not one person looked uncomfortable. Not one person looked away. The video ended. Maren looked at the ultrasound in her hands, then at the screen, then at her own reflection in the dark phone. He had humiliated her before the entire city, less than 1 hour before she learned she had been carrying his child all along. Her phone rang. Ryan's lawyer. She answered without speaking. "Mr. Carter has moved today's hearing forward. The settlement documents are ready. You only need to sign." Maren looked at the ultrasound one more time. "He still believes I can't have children." The lawyer hesitated. "It won't change anything." The call ended. Outside the clinic windows, heavy rain had begun to fall. If you have ever been told you are not enough, by someone whose own failures they gave you to carry, this story is for you. Welcome to Aurora Cinema Fiction. Stay with us. If this story moves you, please subscribe, like, and share. It means everything to this channel. 6 years earlier, Maren had not planned to fall in love with Ryan Carter. She had been finishing her master's degree in architectural design. She had plans. Her own plans. Then she met Ryan. He was not wealthy yet. He owned a small construction company with 12 employees and far more debt than contracts. He was charming and ambitious, and he looked at Maren as though she were the most important person in every room he entered. 3 months later, he proposed with a silver band he could barely afford. "I can't promise you luxury, but I promise you'll never regret choosing me." She believed him. She left graduate school. She joined his company. She redesigned proposals and negotiated contracts and worked weekends without pay. When banks refused Ryan loans, they approved them because Maren rebuilt every financial projection herself. Within 4 years, the small construction firm had become one of the fastest-growing companies in the state. Magazine covers called Ryan Carter a self-made businessman. Nobody mentioned the woman working beside him until 2 in the morning. Nobody knew she had quietly built half the empire carrying his name. Then came the first year without a child. Ryan said it did not matter. The second year, he still smiled. The third year, his mother began asking uncomfortable questions at family dinners. By the 4th year, the smiles had disappeared. Ryan insisted on specialists. Every report pointed toward Maren. The treatments began. Hormones, procedures, operations, hope followed by disappointment, followed by more hope, followed by worse disappointment. Each failure hardened something in Ryan. He stopped reaching for her hand. He stopped coming home before midnight. Whenever Maren suggested he should also be tested, he laughed. My family has never had fertility problems. There is nothing wrong with me. She never argued, because she loved him more than she loved being right. What Maren never discovered was that Ryan had quietly refused every medical test the specialists recommended for him. Instead, he allowed every failure to become hers. And little by little, he convinced himself of the same lie. The lie that would destroy everything he had built. Maren did not go to the hearing. She walked out of the clinic into the rain and kept walking. No destination, no umbrella, no plan. Just movement, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant feeling, and she was not ready for that yet. By the time darkness settled over the city, she had walked for nearly 3 hours. Her shoes were ruined. Her legs trembled. She had not eaten since morning. She lowered herself onto the bench of an abandoned bus stop at the edge of town. For the first time, she admitted what she had been avoiding all day. She did not have a home anymore. Several miles away, a dusty pickup truck moved along the empty country road. Behind the wheel sat Daniel. 38 years old. Weathered hands on the steering wheel. Dark hair graying at the temples. The particular quietness of a man who has reduced his life to its essential tasks and is doing them out of love rather than habit. Beside him, his 8-year-old daughter Lily slept curled beneath an oversized blanket with a stuffed rabbit her mother had sewn before cancer took her 2 years earlier. Daniel glanced at her. Everything he did was for the child sleeping beside him. His headlights found movement at the bus stop. A woman. Head lowered. Completely drenched. Not moving. He drove 20 meters past her, then stopped. His late wife's voice came to him the way it always did when he was about to do the right thing and needed reminding. If everyone keeps driving because they assume someone else will stop, then no one ever stops. He shifted into reverse. Lily opened one eye. Dad? Someone needs help. She looked through the rain-covered window, then without hesitation, then let's help her. Daniel stepped into the rain and walked toward the bus stop, keeping his hands visible. Maren heard footsteps and stood immediately backing away. I don't have any money. I'm not asking for any. I don't want trouble. Neither do I. Rain fell between them. My name is Daniel. She said nothing. He nodded toward the road. No buses come through here after 7. I know. You'll get sick out here. I don't care. Those 3 words landed differently than he expected. Not dramatic. Just true. He looked at her carefully. Bare left hand, where a ring had obviously been. A hospital bracelet still on her wrist. A woman carrying far more than rain. I'm heading back to my farm, he said. My daughter is in the truck. Maren looked up. Through the rain, a small face watched from the passenger window. Lily smiled. A gentle, completely uncalculated smile. The first kindness Maren had encountered all day. Daniel removed his jacket and held it toward her. You don't have to tell me your story. You don't owe me anything, but no one should spend the night alone in a storm. Maren stared at the jacket, then at the child. The tiny part of her that had not completely broken whispered one word. Trust. She reached out with shaking fingers and accepted the jacket. Neither of them knew yet what that decision on a dark roadside would become. Keep watching, the best part is coming. Maren woke the next morning to birds and silence, and the brief mercy of forgetting. Then her eyes found the divorce papers on the bedside table. Memory returned. She went downstairs. Daniel was already outside. She told him she should leave. He told her his mother would be offended if she left without breakfast. As if on cue, Margaret opened the kitchen window. Daniel Carter, stop trying to send that girl away before she's eaten. He raised both hands in surrender. For the first time in months, Maren laughed. At the table, Lily had already set an extra place. She looked at Maren with quiet pride. Daddy says everyone at our table gets pancakes. No crystal glasses. No expensive dining room. Just pancakes and coffee, and people who actually looked at each other while talking. It felt richer than anything Ryan had ever bought her. In the days that followed, Maren did not ask to stay. She simply made herself useful. She helped Margaret in the kitchen. She organized the pantry. She repaired torn curtains. She convinced Lily that vegetables could be arranged into faces. The farmhouse changed without anyone agreeing to let it. It simply became warmer. One evening, Daniel returned from the fields to find Lily running toward him. "Dad, Miss Maren fixed Mummy's piano." He stopped. For 2 years no one had touched that piano. After his wife Emily died, he had closed the lid and walked away from it because he could not bear to hear it. Inside, Maren stood awkwardly beside the instrument. "I hope you don't mind. The keys were only stuck. I thought Lily might enjoy it." Daniel walked to the piano slowly. His fingers rested on the lid. He opened it, pressed one key. A clear note filled the room. He looked at Maren. "Thank you." She shook her head. "I didn't fix the piano. I just gave it permission to sing again." That night, Margaret found Daniel on the porch. "You like her?" He looked at the dark fields. "She's been through enough." That wasn't my question. He was quiet for a long time. "I'm still married in here." He touched his chest. "No," Margaret said. "You still love Emily. That is different. The right woman never replaces the first. She simply writes the next chapter." Daniel said nothing, because he knew his mother was right and was not yet ready to say so. Across town, Ryan was learning a different kind of truth. His lawyer had called him into the office. "There is a complication." Ryan sat down. "The fertility reports." His expression changed. "What about them?" "There was a laboratory error 6 months ago. Your hormone levels were misread. The corrected results show a condition that developed only in the last year. Something to do with a related health issue you were never tested for." A document slid across the desk. "It's degenerative. It would not have affected your fertility 3 years ago, but it explains why your numbers have dropped sharply since." Ryan stared at the words. The clinic repeated the analysis. They confirmed it twice. Ryan did not speak. "There is something else. Given how advanced the condition already is, the child Vanessa delivered cannot biologically be yours." Everything stopped. Ryan sat alone in his office, long after the lawyer left. He looked around at the Italian leather furniture and the glass walls and the framed awards and the photographs. One photograph caught him. Maren, standing beside him 5 years earlier, smiling as though he hung the moon. He picked up the frame. Then it hit him properly. If his condition had only developed in the last year, then 3 years ago, when the specialists ran every test on Maren and pointed every failure back at her, it had never been her at all. She had never been the reason. And the child she had been carrying the morning he stood beneath crystal lights and called her empty in front of 300 people was not a mistake of timing. It was his. He had been a father for 8 weeks before he destroyed his marriage. He had not known. He had not asked. He had simply decided who to blame and built 6 years of certainty on top of it. Every successful project in that office, every perfectly organized meeting, every contract that had gone through. Maren had made it possible. He had spent 6 years believing she had contributed nothing because she had not given him a child. Now he understood. She had been carrying his child the entire time he was choosing someone else. Ryan's black luxury SUV was spotted first by Lily. She looked up from the garden and said simply, "Dad." Daniel followed her eyes toward the vehicle, rolling slowly down the dusty farm road. Ryan stepped out in his tailored suit and polished shoes. Daniel walked toward him. "Can I help you?" Ryan looked past him. "I'm here to see my wife." "She's not your wife if she doesn't want to be." Ryan did not answer. He called Maren's name across the yard. She appeared on the porch. When she saw him, 6 months of rebuilt peace contracted briefly, then held. "What are you doing here?" He climbed the steps. "I know the truth now." She waited. The corrected medical reports. You were never the reason we couldn't have a child. It was me, a condition that only developed in the last year. He paused. Our baby is mine, Maren, and Vanessa's isn't. Maren looked at him without expression. I knew the day your lawyer sent me the corrected report. His eyes widened. You never called. You never asked. You only looked for someone to blame. He lowered his head. I'm sorry. I was angry. I was confused. You believed I was broken because it was easier than wondering if you were. He could not deny it. Tears came. I've lost everything. Maren looked at him quietly. No, you threw everything away. You destroyed our marriage before you even knew what you were destroying. He reached into his jacket and removed her wedding ring. I kept it. I hoped we could start again. Maren looked at the ring. Then slowly shook her head. You didn't come because you found love. You came because you lost certainty. He started to speak. She raised one hand. For 6 years, I asked you to stand beside me. You stood beside everyone else. When I needed you most, you handed me divorce papers and called me empty in front of 300 people, while I was carrying our child. A pause. I buried this marriage the day I walked out of that hospital. It just took you longer to realize it had already died. Ryan's shoulders collapsed. He had expected argument, tears, anger. He had not prepared for the particular quiet of a woman who had already healed. Daniel had remained several meters away. Close enough if she needed him. Far enough to give her the moment. Ryan noticed. You love her, Daniel answered without hesitation. I know she deserves peace. That is where I start. Maren looked at Daniel, then back at Ryan. That is the difference. You always spoke about what you deserved. He speaks about what I deserve. She closed Ryan's fingers around the ring. Take it home. I don't need proof that I was once loved. She turned and walked back into the farmhouse without looking back. Ryan stood alone on the porch. The wind moved across the fields. He walked back to his car and drove away. That evening, Maren was still at the farm. She had not packed. She had not made any decisions. She had simply sat with the afternoon until it became evening, and then walked out to the sunflower field because she did not know where else to go. She was not crying. She was past that. She was just standing among the tall flowers in the last of the light, with her arms folded across her chest. Daniel found her there. He did not ask how she was. He stood beside her and looked at the field. They were quiet for a while. Then Lily's voice came from the porch, asking about dinner, and Daniel called back that they would be there in a minute. She asked me this morning whether sunflowers follow the moon as well as the sun, Maren said. Daniel smiled. What did you tell her? I told her I would find out. She will hold you to that. I know. Another silence. The light was going gold across the tops of the flowers. Can I ask you something? Maren said. Yes. When Emily died, did you ever think you had done something to deserve it? Daniel was quiet for a moment. Every day for about a year. What changed? He looked at the field. Lily fell off her bike and scraped her knee and came inside crying, and I held her, and it hit me that she needed me present. Not guilty, present. He paused. Guilt was the easier thing, presence was harder. Maren looked at the sunflowers. I spent 6 years believing I was the problem, that I was the thing that didn't work. She exhaled slowly. Even now, part of me is waiting to find out what I did wrong here too. Daniel turned to look at her. He did not rush to fill the silence. When he spoke, it was quietly. You were never the problem. You were the solution to problems that were never yours to carry. Maren looked at him. He was not saying it to comfort her. He was saying it because it was true, and he had seen enough of her in the past weeks to know it was true. She looked back at the field. The sunflowers faced west, toward the last of the light. She had been doing the same thing for years without knowing it, turning toward whatever light was available, finding a way to grow anyway. They walked back to the house together as Lily called from the porch a second time, with considerably less patience. That night, Maren sat at the kitchen table long after everyone else had gone to bed. She did not feel fixed. She did not feel like everything was going to be all right in the simple way people sometimes promised. She felt something quieter and more honest than that. She felt like herself. For the first time, in a very long time. She felt like herself. 3 months later, the sunflower field was in full bloom. Golden flowers stretched toward the morning sky. Lily ran laughing through the rows. Daniel walked toward the porch where Maren stood with her coffee watching them. He stopped beside her. Held out a small velvet box. No grand speech, no audience, no pressure. He opened it. A simple ring. My home stopped feeling empty the day you walked through that door. I don't need you to become Emily. I only hope you'll become my future. Maren was nodding before he finished the sentence. Yes. Lily squealed and threw her arms around both of them simultaneously. 1 year later, Maren stood in a hospital room, with Daniel holding one hand and Lily holding the other. The doctor smiled. The condition your previous doctors never properly investigated was temporary and completely treatable. Maren looked at the monitor. The heartbeat she had first seen alone in a waiting room, while everything fell apart, was back. This time Daniel was beside her. Congratulations, the doctor said. You're going to be a mother, Maren cried. Not the silent, desperate crying of someone who has run out of hope. The kind that comes when something you stopped believing in arrives anyway. Daniel held her. Lily pressed her small face against Maren's arm. I'm going to be a big sister, she whispered. Months later, as Maren held her newborn daughter, she thought about the words Ryan had spoken before 300 people. Empty womb. She looked down at the child, then at Daniel, then at Lily asleep in the chair beside the bed still holding her stuffed rabbit. The greatest miracle had never been becoming a mother. It had been finding the man who loved her long before she ever became one. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs it today. Subscribe to Aurora Cinema Fiction. Leave a comment below and tell us where in the world you are watching from. You might be surprised how many people felt exactly what you just felt. And remember, every story we tell is made with one purpose: to make you feel deeply and remind you that love, in all its forms, is always worth fighting for.